Hey everyone, and welcome to Animal Notebook. I'm so glad you're here today because we're jumping right into the Shoebill saga. In this explainer, we are going to explore the creature with the absolute scariest eyes in nature, the terrifying yet profoundly fascinating Shoebill. Now, if you've spent any time online recently, you've probably seen this creature. It's totally taken the internet by storm as a viral meme bird, mostly because it looks like a giant animatronic straight out of a theme park. But behind all those memes is a real, incredibly complex animal.
I mean, just look at those pale yellow, unblinking eyes. Seriously, it's a piercing stare that undeniably strikes fear into the heart of swamp prey. It's this almost prehistoric look that makes you feel like you've literally stepped back in time. But, as we'll see throughout this explainer, there is so much more to this misunderstood swamp monster than just a scary face.
But hey, before we judge it by its intimidating stare, we have to ask the fundamental question. What exactly is this prehistoric giant lurking out there in the African wetlands? Where does it come from, and how on earth does it survive in some of the most remote, dense papyrus marshes in countries like Uganda, Zambia, and South Sudan?
In Section 1, the living dinosaur.
Okay, so when we talk about this bird, we are talking about massive, massive scale. Picture this, standing up to 5 feet tall. That's about 1.5 meters. The shoebill boasts an absolutely giant wingspan that can reach up to 8 feet across. Weighing in at an average of 11 and 12 pounds, it casts this imposing slate-gray silhouette against the African sky. It's literally like watching a dinosaur take flight.
And you can't talk about the shoebill without talking about, well, the bill. This really highlights that bulbous, shoe-shaped beak. It reaches nearly 24 centimeters, or over 9 inches long, and is around 12 centimeters wide. Notice that very sharp, hooked tip right at the end? That is a highly specialized, built-in tool designed for one specific thing: gripping incredibly slippery prey.
It's so unique that its scientific name, Balaniceps rex, literally translates to the whale-headed king. Kind of fitting, right? It's a title that perfectly captures its distinct, heavy-set, and majestic profile. And get this, it is entirely unique. It's the single, solitary species within its entire taxonomic family. Truly a king of its own lineage.
Section 2. The Swamp Assassin. So, how does a giant bird hunt in the dense, oxygen-poor papyrus swamps of East Central Africa? Well, what's really fascinating is their collapse fishing technique. As ambush predators, they don't chase their food, no way. Instead, they stand completely, absolutely motionless for hours, literally looking like statues. They just wait for fish to surface in the shallow water. Imagine a lungfish swimming by, and suddenly, bam! This giant bird plunges its entire body weight forward into the vegetation to strike, crushing the catch with those sharp bill edges.
And you know, their menu is definitely not for the faint of heart. That powerful bill allows them to handle prey that is simply too tough or too large for other wading birds. They feast on everything from their absolute favorite, the marble lungfish, to catfish, slippery eels, monitor lizards, water snakes, and, wait for it, actual baby crocodiles. Basically, if it fits in the bill, it's fair game.
Section 3. Bizarre bird behaviors.
Now, beyond their killer hunting skills, their daily lives are packed with these surprisingly derpy, almost comical quirks. For starters, they are intensely solitary and usually dead silent birds. But when they do need to communicate, like greeting a mate, they rapidly clatter their bills together, creating this incredibly loud, echoing sound that sounds exactly like a machine gun. Oh, and to survive that intense tropical African heat, they practice something called urohydrosis, which is a fancy scientific way of saying they actually urinate on their own legs so the evaporation cools them down. And if you ever catch them in flight, you'll notice they tuck their heavy neck back against their body, just like a pelican, rather than stretching it out like a heron.
But hey, despite the scary vibe and the whole leg peeing thing, they are actually incredibly dedicated parents. They build these massive floating nests out of wetland vegetation. When that dry season heat beats down on their eggs or chicks, both parents will use that massive cavernous beak to scoop up water and literally pour it right over their young to keep them cool. So yeah, that terrifying weapon doubles as a giant, loving water bucket.
Section 4. Saving the vulnerable giant. Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial point. Behind that intimidating prehistoric exterior is an animal that desperately needs our help to survive in the modern world. Looking at the data, the reality's pretty stark, guys. Right now, there are only roughly 3,300 to 5,300 mature individuals remaining globally. Because of those super declining numbers, this incredible species is officially classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Their existence is hanging in a very delicate balance.
And you might be wondering, why are the numbers so low? Well, these threats are primarily driven by human activity. Since they nest right on the ground in accessible swamp margins, they're just incredibly vulnerable. Their essential freshwater swamps are constantly being drained for agriculture. On top of that, local cattle grazing and fishing activities accidentally trample or disrupt their nests. And tragically, because they look so incredibly unique, they're heavily targeted for illegal capture and the wildlife trade.
But here's the thing we have to remember. The shoebill is an absolute keystone of its environment. It maintains the balance in these wetland ecosystems by keeping predator populations in check. So saving the shoebill isn't just about saving one weirdly wonderful bird. Protecting them and their swamps literally means protecting countless other species that share their home.
Section 5. Shoebill FAQs. To close out this explainer on the Animal Notebook channel, let's dive into some rapid-fire facts and answer 4 of your most frequently asked questions about the shoebill. First up, considering it's often called the whale-headed stork or the shoe-billed stork in everyday language, is it actually a member of the stork family? Surprisingly, no. Even with those incredibly long legs, the wading habits, and a super similar build, anatomical and modern genetic studies have totally proven they are not true storks at all. They're actually much closer relatives to pelicans. Who knew? Question 2. We know they build those large floating nests, and the female typically lays 1 to 3 chalky white eggs. But how many of those chicks actually make it to adulthood?
Sadly, nature is pretty tough out there. Usually only a single strongest chick survives to fledge and leave the nest. This is primarily because of intense competition for food between the siblings, meaning the parents have to focus all their energy on the most viable offspring. Because of this extremely slow reproductive rate, making a population recovery is very, very difficult.
Question 3. What is the actual lifespan of these slow-moving, prehistoric-looking birds?
Well, they can live for a very, very long time. They're known to live over 35 years out in their wild African habitat, and they could potentially live up to half a century, 50 years, in captivity when they're provided with proper care. And finally, our 4th and probably most important question. If you ever find yourself staring into those terrifying, unblinking yellow eyes out in a remote African swamp, considering their vulnerable numbers and shrinking habitat, are you in danger from the shoebill, or is the shoebill in danger from us? The truth is, adult shoebills have virtually no natural predators out there. Their numbers are dropping solely due to human impact. It's definitely a sobering thought to leave you with today. But thank you so much for learning with me today on Animal Notebook, and I'll see you all in the next explainer.